The story opens with a shy young boy named Koros, who is involuntarily assigned to clean the infirmary by a group of bullies claiming that such a task is fitting for a dependable and honored member of the health committee. Reluctantly, Koros complies, managing a forced smile, though he secretly longs for a chance to stand up to them someday. Unexpectedly, a mysterious young woman emerges from behind the curtains, casting a stern glare at the disruptive bullies. Her icy voice threatens to end their antics if they do not leave immediately. The bullies, visibly terrified, begin to tremble and shake like phones vibrating on silent mode, and to Koros's astonishment, they quickly apologize and retreat. He recognizes the imposing girl as Hayamiya, their senior who often bunked classes in the infirmary. Their interactions are minimal, as his role on the health committee kept him at a distance. Yet, surprisingly, her expression softens, and she quietly questions whether Koros has been assigned to clean the infirmary once more. Hayamiya appears to harbor a surprising kindness towards him, which unsettles Koros greatly. Her gentle behavior, contrasting her tough exterior, intrigues him and makes him feel nervous, so much so that when she notices his hesitation, he suddenly collapses to his knees, much to her concern. It seems that romance often blossoms amid the most emotionally steady moments. Koros is baffled by how unexpectedly gentle and caring Hayamiya has become, considering her usual aloofness. He recalls her assistance in cleaning the infirmary just the previous day, which made him see her in a new light. As he heads toward school, he is tense upon noticing a familiar group of bullies walking ahead, preparing himself for trouble. To his surprise, Hayamiya appears and convincingly drives them away with her commanding presence, leaving the bullies no choice but to flee. Evidently, she seems to run her own pest control service before school begins. Suddenly noticing Koros, Hayamiya's previously cold demeanor softens into a warm smile as she kindly offers to accompany him on his walk to school. Nervous and overwhelmed, Koros has little choice but to agree. As they walk side by side, he feels the weight of many curious stares directed at them. The situation feels almost unbelievable, especially considering they had only a few brief exchanges in the infirmary. Wanting to dispel any misunderstanding, he gathers his courage and asks her an unthinkable question. She looks back at him with a cryptic smile and responds by encouraging him to discover the answer himself. Her amused expression makes Koros fear that she might be attracted to him, yet her next comment is absurd, delivered cheerfully, suggesting that his eagerness to clean the infirmary was what she found most intriguing. Confused, he listens as she points toward the approaching school bell, unable to fully grasp his feelings but realizing that walking with her is a rare honor. The following day, Koros is again walking to school with Hayamiya when she excitedly taps his arm, drawing his attention to a black cat along the way. Unaware that two foolish boys are secretly trailing him, he is unexpectedly bumped into by them on purpose. She immediately becomes anxious as the delinquents feign apology, claiming they were in a rush. However, when Senpai firmly seizes their collars, the boys freeze, and he makes them apologize sincerely, clarifying the bump was deliberate. Terrified, they bow deeply before Koros, nervously promising that such incidents won't happen again. As they hurried away, she worries about his safety, which amuses him. Suddenly, her eyes settle on his slightly scratched hand, bleeding lightly, prompting her to hysterically insist he wash it at a nearby park. They find a water stand and she watches anxiously as he rinses his injured hand in pain. Then she offers to bandage it and instructs him to sit down. As he winces, she playfully suggests that his scratch must hurt terribly. Unbeknownst to her, he fidgets nervously because he is unaccustomed to such close care. Clearly, what overwhelms him isn't the injury, but the attention itself. After she's finished, she glances at him and, observing his grimace, teasingly remarks that he might still be hurting. He quickly steps back, embarrassed by their intimacy. Nonetheless, he can't help but notice the adorable little bandage on his hand. Later, at school, their misbehavior earns them scoldings from a teacher, who criticizes them for slacking and acting recklessly. Koros panics while Hayamiya nonchalantly glares at him. Koros attempts to explain, But the teacher dismisses excuses, asserting that nothing cures teenage chaos like an adult's loud, clueless intervention. He accuses them of irresponsibility and neglecting school rules, caught up in their antics. Hamiya, staring silently, suddenly chuckles and lightly teases his shiny bald head for causing too much glare, missing his brief speech. The teacher then sincerely apologized to Hamiya for causing her trouble. Growing irritated, the teacher claims her behavior is offensive and threatens detention, assigning them to clean after school. Humiliated, Kuros apologizes to Hamiya for dragging her into trouble, but she remains composed and secretly enjoys standing up to the overbearing teacher. Her sharp teasing results in detention. Meanwhile, Kuros continues to be captivated by her fearless attitude. With a radiant smile, she states that accompanying him to school is so enjoyable that nothing else matters. Her beauty and confidence leave him breathless. As expected, they end up cleaning the pool after school due to their morning misbehavior. Kuros feels guilty for causing Hamiya Senpai trouble but reassures himself that this is one of the best situations to be in after classes. Seeing his enthusiasm, she urges him to finish the task quickly, encouraging him to complete their chore. He understood that her predicament was his fault, recalling how easily she could ignite with anger. Instead of showing happiness, he put on a worried expression, hoping she wasn't upset about being stuck in the tedious task of cleaning the pool. She glanced at his dejected face and then cheerfully reassured him that the chore could actually be quite interesting. His initial shock quickly turned into relief when he saw her spirits lifting, and he found himself hopeful for better communication, especially since they were the only ones assigned to this duty. He saw this as a perfect chance to learn more about her interests and habits. The thought of drawing closer to her filled him with joy, but his hopes were dashed when several other imps arrived, also assigned to clean. To make matters worse, they began causing chaos during their shift, splashing water wildly in a reckless water fight. He nervously warned Hayame about the commotion, but she already seemed inflamed with anger, staring blindly at one spot. Recognizing her dislike of noisy crowds, he gently attempted to soothe her, urging her to ignore their antics. To his astonishment, she rejected his advice, causing him to wonder if their feelings were mutual. Just as she was about to open up, a sudden splash of water struck her face, interrupting her. The troublemaking students froze in fear under her fierce stare, nervously pleading for forgiveness. Kuros couldn't help but notice how intimidating she appeared. Soon after, the others completed their work and quickly left the scene. Meanwhile, Hayame sank into a corner, pouting. Kuros speculated that her foul mood might be due to their plans being ruined. She humorously complained about being soaked, contemplating filing a genuine emotional distress claim to receive compensation. To recover, she quickly tied her hair back and peeled off her drenched sweater. Picking up her broom, she prepared to continue cleaning. He believed that nothing helped mend emotional wounds better than vigorous sweeping. Yet, he panicked when he saw her soaked clothes, hurriedly averting his gaze to avoid provoking her wrath. Still with his eyes shut, he swiftly removed his own jersey and offered it to her. She was initially surprised but then understood his considerate gesture. Gratefully, she accepted, and Kuros felt immensely relieved, eager to put the discomfort behind them. She slipped into the jersey and set about finishing the task as swiftly as possible. Meanwhile, he was thankful for a moment of quiet with her. Suddenly, he remembered her earlier sullenness caused by the impulsive imp's intrusion and wondered what lay behind her mood. When he asked about it, she chose to stay silent. Curious, he pressed her for a response, but she only urged him to work faster. With a resigned sigh, he returned to his chores, only for her to mischievously turn on the water hose and spray him. Later, as he headed toward the infirmary, he realized just how unexpectedly enjoyable her company was during the cleanup. Since the locker room was inaccessible and the infirmary appeared empty, he decided to change there. Unaware that someone was inside, he entered and immediately noticed Hayame adjusting her uniform. Flushed with embarrassment, he quickly retreated and apologized. After a brief awkward silence, the boy managed to mumble a small apology before walking away heavily, oblivious to the sinister gaze and chilling smile trailing behind him. Because of this, he inadvertently unlocked a tougher difficulty mode. Out of the blue, he felt as if caught in a horror scene when Hayame gently tapped his shoulder, her calm, teasing voice warning him to erase that embarrassing incident before she scolded him casually. Instinctively, he fled, eager to comply with her modest request, though he suspected he would remember it forever. Even the next day, Kuros remained troubled by the mishap, unable to dismiss it from his mind. His discomfort heightened with anticipation about facing Hayame that day. As chance would have it, he nearly collided with her, and her commanding presence instantly triggered panic. Summoning his courage, he tried to start a conversation and managed to utter a simple greeting. Yet, before he could speak, she simply moved past him aloofly, leaving him stunned. Her silent treatment felt like the ultimate boss level. He stared after her in disbelief, feeling completely ignored. The thought of her anger over yesterday's incident only worsened his anxiety, and he found himself in the worst possible situation. He painfully recalled her cheerful face and how they had grown closer even in the classroom. His thoughts were now fixated on her, making it difficult to focus. Perhaps he had misunderstood her intentions, seeing her merely as a member of the health committee and insignificant to her. Her unusual behavior towards him, despite her intimidating demeanor, also troubled him. Still, he felt it necessary to apologize and clear any misunderstandings. After school, he headed to the infirmary, knowing exactly where she would be. Spotting her sitting on a couch, wearing a hoodie and scrolling through her phone, he hesitantly approached and called out loudly. She quickly pulled back her hoodie, revealing her glasses, and looked genuinely pleased to see him. He stared at her in amazement but quickly snapped out of it. His concern about her reaction after the previous day's incident lingered, yet she seemed surprised at his eagerness. He mentioned how she had ignored him passing in the hallway, prompting her to awkwardly point out that her eyesight was the reason. She had forgotten her contact lenses that day. Additionally, her ears were stuffed with earplugs, rendering her nearly deaf. He gazes at her with such helplessness that she feels compelled to apologize for causing any inconvenience. With a moody expression, he admits that he is both happy and amused, casually dismisses their recent mishap and accident, and absolves her of any fault. Still, she gently urges him to forget about it, warning that dwelling on the issue might spoil everything. Surprisingly, he feels a sense of relief when things begin to settle back into normalcy. He confesses that he was worried about her anger just as their rapport was growing more comfortable. Witnessing his emotional outburst sparks her mischievous side, prompting her to tease him playfully. Rosa, overwhelmed by his embarrassment, hides his face and denies everything with a blush. One morning, as he heads to school, Cross overhears students discussing the re-platform used for online chats. Curious, he checks his own re-contacts on his phone, only to find mostly family acquaintances and trivial acquaintances. It dawns on him that since entering high school, he hasn't managed to make any real friends. Suddenly, Hamia's face flashes in his mind, yet he quickly dismisses the thought, hesitant to uncover her true feelings. He fears asking her for her contact details might perplex her, imagining her confused reaction. Still, he feels an urge to understand what kind of re-user she is. He suspects her profile might carry a black icon symbolizing her mysterious, detached personality, her tendency to stay silent, and her aloof demeanor. Unexpectedly, she appears suddenly behind him, startling him with a jump scare. Shocked, he manages to greet her awkwardly. She responds with a sly smile and proposes that they walk together. He agrees eagerly but cannot stop thinking about her. Her cheerful attitude surprises him, especially considering the earlier mishap, yet she continues to behave casually toward him. Feeling a surge of courage, he considers asking for her contact info, but before he can, she offers to share her details with him instead. He looks at her like an awkward fool, causing her to frown and wonder about his apparent disinterest. He quickly denies this, explaining that he is hesitant to exchange contact information with someone senior. He hopes she can read his mind. Hamiya, noticing his discomfort, patiently explains that she tried to contact him after yesterday's incident, but saw him rush away too quickly. With a bright smile, she emphasizes that their budding friendship is the main reason she wants to exchange details. Deep inside, he feels honored to be considered her friend. Soon, the exchange is complete, and she teases him about not having an icon. To his surprise, he sees a cute bunny profile picture on her account, along with her first name, Myosin. Overwhelmed with joy, he fails to notice her expression turn deadpan. When he finally realizes, he anxiously asks about her change in demeanor, but she simply tells him to hurry up and move on without revealing why. As they walk along the school corridor, Cross overhears students mentioning Heimia's name, which does not surprise him because she remains quite popular among their classmates. When they reveal how she was seen smoking, he is suddenly struck by a jolt of realization, as if hit by a powerful 1000-volt electric shock. The others teasingly comment that anything could be expected from someone like her. Yet, Karos remains in a state of disbelief, convinced that despite her boldness, she could never truly cross certain boundaries. Anxiously, he searches for her in the infirmary, approaching the nurse to inquire about her whereabouts. The quickest way to dispel a rumor is often through a wave of emotional panic. The nurse informs him that she is in the courtyard nearby, prompting him to decide on a quick peek. As he opens the door to the courtyard, his nerves are tingling with apprehension. Still, he quickly reassures himself that the rumor is unfounded, nothing more than a silly hearsay. To his surprise, he finds her there, holding a strange stick between her lips and clutching a small rectangular box. From a distance, it looks as though his worst fears might have come true. Heart-pounding, he walks closer, and she nonchalantly offers him one. To his relief, he realizes she's not smoking a cigarette at all. Instead, it's a candy resembling a cigarette, crunchy and shaped like a real one, which she's been biting and chewing. She chuckles, saying she has become addicted to the candy that looks like a cigarette. He accepts it gratefully, understanding that someone observing her from afar might have jumped to the wrong conclusion, especially if they didn't know her well. He then clarifies the recent rumor circulating at school about her smoking, amused that all this fuss was over a piece of candy. She shows no surprise, accustomed to various rumors linked to her character, and remains indifferent to them. Expressing his relief, he mentions how worried he had been until he uncovered the truth. She looks at him with a slight, amused surprise, breaking into a meaningful smile. Playfully, she strikes a theatrical pose and asks how he might react if she truly had been smoking. Panicked, Karos hopes that's not the case, while she laughs at his innocence, admitting she was only teasing. Curious, Karos asks about Hayamiae Senpai feeding koi fish every day in the courtyard, wondering if she has a fondness for them. She, deep in thought, responds that her interest lies more in understanding what they are thinking. Suddenly, teasingly, she whimsically suggests she'd love to eat them to find out how they taste, making his spine shiver with unease. A brief, awkward silence ensues, and he then decides to help her explore the idea. He searches online for recipes and explains how properly removing the fishy smell can make the fish delicious, mentioning they can be used in miso soups and simmered dishes. Hayamie stares at him in disbelief, proclaiming she was only joking. She sighs, realizing her jokes might be too sophisticated for him, while he humbly admits that her humor is indeed complex because he had mistakenly thought she could eat anything. This time, he succeeded in giving her a genuine shiver. Kuros was caught off guard when his older sister, Sora, suddenly stormed into his room. Her eyes immediately narrowed with suspicion as she noticed his perplexed expression, suspecting he might be watching something questionable. Without waiting for an explanation, she quickly pressed him on his availability for the upcoming Sunday. When he hesitated, she ignored his response, insisting on a clear answer. Sora revealed that her movie plans had unexpectedly fallen through because a friend had changed her mind, leaving her with mere tickets. Since nothing says family bonding like being questioned before breakfast, she proposed giving him the tickets instead. He suggested that she select their youngest sibling, Umiai, but Sora subtly hinted otherwise by mentioning that even Umiai was busy with her club activities that Sunday. This piqued his curiosity about the genre of the film, which turned out to be a brutal horror. With 2 tickets in hand, Sora recommended he invite a friend, assuming he had some to choose from during high school. After she left, he absent-mindedly scrolled through his contact list, and instantly, Hamiya's image appeared in his mind. Clearly, nothing made a horror night more thrilling than panicking over his crush. He tried to dismiss the thought, convincing himself they weren't close enough to hang out. Yet, his foolish mind juxtaposed the idea of a terrifying movie with Jamie's intense expression, as if balancing 2 algebraic expressions. As he stared at her previous message, a new one unexpectedly arrived from her. Since his gaze was already on her chat window, he saw it instantly. Embarrassment washed over him at the terrible timing. Seizing the opportunity, she teased him, guessing he was about to reach out. Faced with no other choice, he nervously asked her out. To his surprise, he managed to inquire whether she was free the coming Sunday. She was taken aback by his unusual question, so he awkwardly explained he had seen a horror film recently and still had an extra ticket. Recognizing his intent, she readily agreed to go with him. Stunned, he stared at the screen in disbelief as she thanked him for the invitation. Secretly, he felt grateful to Sora for giving him such a perfect chance. Meanwhile, Hamiya was lying on her bed, her gaze fixated on the screen, seemingly terrified of what might happen next. Once everything was arranged, Cross hurried to the lounge where his sisters watched TV. He asked Sora to help him pick the right outfit for Sunday. The girls looked at him in surprise before sharing a knowing glance, both suspecting that he had invited a girl to the movie. Sora was pleased to realize that, at last, the tickets wouldn't go to waste. Humiliated, Kuros desperately attempts to deny everything, but Sora, exuberant and hopeful, is eager to lend a helping hand. Umiai, equally eager to chip in, makes it clear that fashion mishaps are a shared family affair. Mischievously, she offers some advice, which Kuros irritably dismisses. However, she then sincerely asks for his opinion on her wardrobe, prompting him to agree, on the condition he is not judged. Much later, when he appears wearing his most careless and unkempt outfit, the girls are visibly disappointed. Despite this, Sora praises his courage in seeking their help, recognizing his genuine effort. Eventually, his sisters manage to assemble a suitable ensemble for him. Sora even volunteers to cut and style his hair, drawing from her budding cosmetology skills. To boost his confidence, she compliments his looks, claiming they resemble her own, and reminds him that a lot of people put considerable effort into their appearance when meeting someone special. Her advice is to generously praise her if he finds her attractive. Observing him in a nervous stupor, Sora notices how poorly he can express his feelings, prompting her to conclude her guidance and call it a night, leaving him more anxious than ever. On Sunday, Koz arrives at the station half an hour early, fully dressed with care. He panics at the thought of appearing so anxious and is bombarded with continuous dating tips from Sora. He understands that he will meet Hayamiya outside of school for the first time and is curious about her arrival. Then, he frets about whether his casual outfit is appropriate for their first date. Soon, she appears, looking elegant and stunning. Kuro is captivated by her beauty. Playfully, she points out that she arrived 20 minutes early. He frantically tries to justify himself but then admits she is also early. She chuckles, explaining she simply misread the train schedule. She then takes the lead, openly expressing her excitement for the day ahead. Nervous, Kuro swallows hard before obeying her. He steals a quick glance at her and is struck by how incredible she looks in casual clothes. His confidence wavers, and he worries about walking side by side with her. He then glances at Sora's dating instructions, fixating on advice about maintaining conversation topics to avoid awkward silences. During their walk, he casually wonders if she enjoys watching movies. When she responds briefly, he bombards her with questions about her outdoor activities on days off, because nothing says smooth dating like rapid-fire interrogations. She replies that she prefers staying at home. Noticing the conversation has become dull and one-sided, he senses her mind is elsewhere. Sitting down on a bench, he feels miserable as he realizes her usual distant demeanor has returned. Earlier, when she left to use the restroom, he was overwhelmed with worry, constantly wondering if he had upset her or if she was just reluctantly accompanying him. He was so overwhelmed with nervousness that he couldn't concentrate on the film. He noticed that even she remained unusually silent throughout the movie, and when a particularly terrifying scene unfolded, he sensed something trembling beside him. To his dismay, Hayame was shaking uncontrollably, resembling a vibrating object, which made him wonder about her tolerance for horror. Suddenly, she stood up abruptly, giggling nervously before giving up on the movie entirely. It became clear to him that she wanted to leave, so he gently held her hand, and they hurried outside together. Once she had calmed a little, she apologized for ruining the evening and even offered to pay for their tickets. This date felt like fleeing a horror film halfway through, but he blamed himself for inviting her without knowing how she handled scary movies. Still, he was curious about why she had agreed to join him in the first place. In a serious tone, she explained that she simply wanted to come and hoped her presence was not an issue. He looked at her in astonishment before joyfully expressing his happiness that she had come. He gradually confided that he had been nervous about their outing and the reason for his initial gloom. Even Hayame hadn't wanted to disappoint him, despite her discomfort. She asked eagerly if he was interested in continuing the evening, and he enthusiastically agreed. Deep down, he found her vulnerable side unexpectedly endearing. He then wondered where she might want to go next. Pointing towards the arcade, she mentioned her desire to see a crying plush toy, which seemed to be her favorite. Excusing himself for a quick trip to the restroom, he admitted to himself that the outing had turned out more enjoyable than he had expected. Hayame proved to be a delightful surprise, easy to hang out with. In his excitement, he glanced once again at Sora's advice on dating, opting to compliment her as much as possible. As he returned, he was stunned to find an irritated Hayame being harassed by some pranksters. The chaotic scene at the arcade was unmistakable. He had anticipated her standing out due to her striking appearance. Moving toward the trouble, he overheard the pranksters pressuring her to exchange contact information. She snapped at them menacingly, trying to fend them off. In response, they mocked her attitude and invaded her personal space. Kuros, overwhelmed with anxiety, saw the situation escalating as the pranksters showed no fear of her. Terrified and eager to intervene, he felt frozen in place. Summoning his courage, he quickly stepped forward, positioning himself between her and the troublemakers. He pulled her away and confronted the predators. Hayame was visibly shocked by his bravery. The pranksters, noticing his small stature, pretended to be frightened and backed off. Size mattered little when courage ignited heroism. Softly, Kuros instructed Hayame to run away within 3 seconds. Before she could fully grasp the situation, he swiftly took her hand and yanked her away, darting from the scene. One of the imps, disappointed by her rejection, hurled some blatantly rude remarks in her direction. His harsh words made Kuros pause him abruptly, causing him to stumble. To Haimea's surprise, he spun around and shouted at them at the top of his lungs, startling everyone nearby. The mischievous creatures were caught off guard, while Haimea found herself stunned, unable to understand what was unfolding. He explained that he had grown tired of their insulting behavior and had wanted to stand up for her, just as she often did for others. Without hesitation, both decided to flee, putting distance between themselves and further trouble. Once they reached a safe spot, he anxiously inquired about her well-being, knowing she had been harassed. She admitted to feeling frightened for a while but reassured him that she was okay. Kuros remained furious at the troublemakers for ruining their day, yet Haimea smiled, calling him her hero of the moment. Her face lit up with gratitude for his daring rescue. He sighed, reminding her how she often comes to his aid, even during mundane tasks like cleaning. Their heroism, it seemed, was mutual. To lift his spirits, she cheerfully reminded him of his brave act confronting the imps, which had caught her completely off guard. Even Kuros agreed he had stepped outside his comfort zone and appreciated the chance to defend her. To shift the mood from seriousness, she proposed they visit the arcade. Kurose confessed that it had been ages since he last entered one, and even Haimea wasn't a regular visitor. Her face brightened when she spotted her favorite plush toy, which immediately made him recall that the same character appeared as her Rin icon. She excitedly told him it was called Sub-X Animal. Among her collection of plushies, she asked which one he preferred. When he pointed at the mouse plush, she remarked that it symbolized him, noting that plush toys now often carry profound meanings. Confident she'd win it easily, she began playing the crane game multiple times, but each attempt ended with failure as the claw missed the toy. Watching her struggle, he realized how lousy she was at it. Keeping calm, she excused herself to get some change. He wondered if he might try his luck and dropped a coin into the slot. When she returned, refreshed and eager to win, Kurose surprised her by triumphantly presenting her with the plush he had managed to snatch with just 100 yen. She was utterly astounded. It seemed impossible. Curious, she asked him how he did it, and he simply explained that he had grabbed the toy by its body rather than its head. Apparently, calling for backup was a surprisingly effective arcade strategy. Haimea was determined to try again, but sadly, every attempt she made failed once more. Her smile turned mysterious as she decided to call the staff for help, and her calm, assertive tone sent a shiver down Kurose's spine. He shuddered, imagining her firmly questioning the attendants and inspecting the game's settings to find a way to win. A wave of terror washed over him when she returned, accompanied by a uniformed staff member. She ominously complained that the game was poorly positioned and requested that it be moved to a spot where winning would be easier. Kurose was struck by her remarkably clever suggestion. The staff member promptly obliged and asked her to try again. She eagerly accepted, and this time she succeeded in grabbing the plush toy. Cheers of pure joy erupted as she held her trophy aloft, a triumphant grin spreading across her face. Kurose couldn't help but praise her resourcefulness, calling her a true go-getter. She then offered him the mouse plush, since that was his preference. To her surprise, Kurose proposed the bunny plush instead, claiming he had initially won that one for her. After exchanging their prizes, Hayamiya and Kurose expressed their shared happiness, both emerging as winners in the end. She happily announced that now they both had matching items, while Kurose humorously reminded her that Cross was still under the impression he had exchanged his own prize with her. She nudged him to keep moving forward, showing that even arcade victories require punctuality. As the day wore on, time seemed to slip away quickly, and soon the sky turned dark. Cross quietly wondered if Hayamiya had enjoyed herself, considering how much had happened. Suddenly, she called out, thanking him for inviting her to such an entertaining day. Kurose, somewhat distracted, quickly agreed, though he couldn't help but reflect on the surprises of the day. How fun could swiftly turn into chaos, plushies, and frantic arcade moments. He shared that he had always thought of Hayamiya as more expressive than himself and appreciated that she had initially rescued him from loneliness by becoming his first real friend. But as they spent more time together, he realized she was more complex than he had believed. She, amused, hoped that his comment was meant positively. He confirmed it, then hesitated, admitting that although they were friends, he still felt like he didn't truly know her. He was unsure why she was so kind to him and wanted to deepen their interaction. She happily agreed to spend more time together. He looked at her, captivated by her charm, and suddenly remembered Sora's advice to compliment others. With Haimea's train approaching soon, he knew he had to act quickly or miss his chance forever. As she prepared to leave, he gathered his courage but found his words stuck due to nerves. Instead of telling her how adorable she looked that day, he showed her the mouse plush and praised its cuteness. Easier and safer than trying to compliment a person. Haimea was puzzled but agreed. Deep inside, he scolded himself as a cowardly loser, realizing he might never be able to confess his true feelings. He lamented how he had built up that moment only to chicken out at the last second, forever wishing he'd found the courage. He believed that certain things remain timeless, a sentiment Sora echoed at the end. Soon, they parted ways for the night, anticipating the coming day. Yet, Krosa's knack for spoiling perfect moments persisted as always. From a distance, he watched her vanish into a bustling crowd of people, pondering how he had envisioned spending 3 dull years at school without friends. However, thanks to Himia's kindness, the narrative was shifting. At least someone was eager to see him the next day. Smiling warmly, he waved her off, promising to give his very best from that moment onward. During the bus journey, he sent her a message expressing gratitude for the day and wishing her a safe trip home. She entered her apartment with a soft smile, tossed her purse onto the table, and collapsed face down onto her bed, her gaze fixed on the adorable bunny plush in her hand, and an involuntary smile spread across her face. The following day, Kuros planned to complete his assignments at home after completing his cleaning duty. He guessed he would be the sole participant that day. Unaware of Hime quietly sneaking behind him, he was taken aback when she suddenly tapped his shoulder, catching him completely off guard. Bewildered, he turned to face her, and they then headed to the infirmary together. Hime inquired about his startling reaction, nervously denying any particular reason. Inside the infirmary, Yo was already seated, surprised to see them together. She expressed curiosity about their closeness, catching both off guard with her directness. Hime quickly recovered, explaining that they had been interacting quite well lately. She urged Kuros to support her, but he was visibly jittery, more relaxed than a jiggly jelly. When pressed again, this time more assertively, he agreed loudly, almost shouting, as his excitement spilled over. In his haste to explain, he blurted out that she had accompanied him to use a leftover movie ticket, revealing they had watched a horror film together. At this, Ye leaned in with a teasing smile, halting his rambling. He hurriedly claimed that she had enjoyed the movie thoroughly, trying to cover his nervousness. Her sharp eyes caught sight of the mouse plush dangling from his bag, prompting her to question him further. He fumbled to defend himself as she playfully asked whether matching plushies with her had made him so exhilarated. Under immense pressure, he denied it outright, trying to hide his embarrassment, which only irritated Ye further. She confronted him about his denial, prompting him to recall hesitating to flaunt the matching plushie on his bag, worried he might offend her with his desperation. Carefully, he admitted that he felt proud to own such a cute pair, but had kept it hidden because he didn't want her to see. He emphasized that as long as she was comfortable with it, he was happy to display it. Matching plushies, after all, were a high-stakes symbol of their connection. Himiya found herself momentarily taken aback by the feeble excuse presented, yet she chose to accept it nonetheless, remarking that if it pleased him, he should proceed as he wished. She even announced her intention to imitate his gesture, attaching her own to her bag starting the next day. For some reason, he sensed a desperate desire within himself to measure up, yet was comforted by the fact that she did not dislike the idea. Meanwhile, Ye watched with curiosity as the two engaged in a charming, playful dispute, finding it quite entertaining. Later, he prepared to leave after finishing his chores, feeling satisfied with the day. He expressed gratitude for that day's events, and he blushed deeply when Himiya coyly mentioned she hoped to see him again tomorrow. The boy left the scene modestly shy. Soon afterward, even Himiya wrapped up her own activities and called it a day. He was glad to hear about her sudden interest in school, her face showing a hint of awkwardness as she tried to deny it. She hurriedly decided to go home before Ye could make any more teasing remarks, even about her school uniform accessories. As she looked at the back of her bag to collect her things, her gaze fixed on a small plush bunny hanging from it. A knowing smile touched her lips as she understood how much she was in denial about her feelings. Here I am. It's been a while. I was in denial about my love. Now I stand here acknowledging everything. I walked away to find peace within myself and to discover the person I've become.